Okay, today is the day that this engine is going to come out of the wrecked car. I've got everything prepared and I'm at the point now to connect the engine crane and get it on out of here. The engine is very loose, as you can see. It's just hanging on by the motor mounts. I've got the AC compressor disconnected from the block and just dropped down, resting on the frame there. The book says that you have to disconnect the compressor at those two garter spring fittings there and discharge the system and everything else, but I now know from working on the white car that I don't have to do that, which is a really great thing. So that's all done. And I've got the AC condenser set to the side on the tire and just, bungee corded to the door to keep it from falling off. I don't want to damage these fins any more than they already are. And because of the way that Ford designed the quick disconnect fittings, these fittings can be rotated 360 degrees. That's the main reason I'm able to do this. And of course the AC hoses, the high pressure hose and low pressure hose, are flexible. On this side you can see one of the engine mounting bolts right there. That's one of them. And then we have another one that you can't see on that side. If I can zoom in, you might be able to see it. And then we're going to have 3 bolts that secure the engine mount on the driver's side that you can't see under the exhaust manifold. And here's what the bolts look like. They're 13 millimeter. And they're kind of designed with this taper on here to help guide them in. So, just like before, I'm going to use the engine load leveler along with 2 chains hooked together. And here's how I connect them together. I just used a regular nut and bolt and washer setup. And then here's the business end. These are going to be connecting to the left and right cylinder heads, which I hope you guys can see. There's one of the bolt locations right there, and the other one is forward of that. And just like I mentioned in the last video, just trying to think ahead, you can see how this engine is rocking back and forth like that because now I have the transmission removed. And when I'm under the car taking off these bolts for the motor mounts, I don't want the engine to fall down or slide backwards and hit me. So I'm trying to think ahead. What I want to do is go ahead and connect the engine crane up and get just a little bit of a tension on that engine to kind of stabilize it, take some of the pressure off those mounts, and it should do 2 things: get those bolts easy, make the bolts easier to come out, and also make it far safer to get the engine out of here. I've got the main engine wiring harness all disconnected and routed out of the way. That all gets connected to the powertrain control module, or ECU. That's where all your injectors are connected, all the manifold absolute pressure sensor, throttle position sensor, idle air control valve, all that stuff is all in this one big wire bundle here. The fuel lines, I've already disconnected these. I just got them sitting here to keep the O-rings from drying out. And they have those garter springs in there that you can see. That's what they look like. And a couple of O-rings. So to put it together, they just slide right in. And I've got the throttle cables all disconnected and routed out of the way. They get connected up here, and I've left the bolts in place and the spring in place. And just like before, I've got everything capped off with saran wrap just to kind of keep foreign matter from getting in there. And then on the other side, I've got the battery terminals and alternator output, fusible link, all that stuff tied up on the top of the engine. So this thing's ready to come out of here. And let me go ahead and get the crane set up, get rid of these bolts, and work it out. Okay, about 10 minutes later, that engine is now free from the vehicle, still moving, just got done with it. And those are all the motor mount bolts there, 2 on each side. And with any project this big, there's always a little bit of damage. Can't be perfect because the car is being taken apart differently than how it's put together. The EGR tube got hung up a little bit on the insulation on this heater box. Not too big of a deal. And looks like the coil pack condenser got bent up a little bit, hung up on the ABS lines. Still no big deal. Everything else is in good shape. You can see how clean that chassis is. And you can see how the lifting arrangement worked. We've got clearance between the chain and the valve cover, just like before. And these bolts, still loose so they can slide around, are far enough away from the valve covers to not crush it on this 13,000 mile engine. So now it's just a matter of, and you can see the other two mounting locations here, which are actually pretty hard to get to with the heater box in the way on the passenger side. But if you guys have a need to pull an engine out of a Panther platform forward, these chains and lifting brackets from O'Reilly's really do the job. You can find these bolts here at Home Depot, and I think they're 60 millimeters long, and this kind of arrangement has worked out perfectly. You can see that chain is not touching the valve cover at all. So that worked out. The only drawback with doing it like this is I have to have a long chain. So this lift is at the maximum extension possible. It was just barely able to clear the frame cross member. And if it wasn't able to clear the cross member, I could always take off the tires and let the car sit on the rotors like I did the white car. And as you notice, the engine is now tilting forward a little bit, whereas from the white car it was tilting way back because it had a transmission on the side of it, on the back of it. So I didn't expect it to tilt forward quite so much. I wish Ford had the lifting points kind of in the middle of the engine so I could control the fore and aft movement of it with the leveling bar. With the leveling bar, all I can do is control side to side, which is not really quite as useful. But this will allow me to start working on that AC system and getting that out of there. That'll be probably the last major component to come out of this car, and then I can finally start putting everything together on the white car. So this is a very big milestone, and just like on the white car, I'll completely remove the refrigeration system, which I have sitting over here, and transfer it. You can see just how clean that engine is with only 13,000 miles. I really feel like I did the right thing, because yesterday when I took out the transmission I found out that the frame is slightly bent, so I can't get the cross member out, and you can see those body mounts shifted over to the right due to the collision. So taking off the body and changing frames on the cars wouldn't have been a very good idea at all. And sometimes you don't really know how badly damaged things are until you start taking them apart. And then on this side, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's just the door is bad, or the door skin got shaved off. The damage is much more extensive than that. You can see the entire floor sill area is caved in pretty badly. where it made contact with the seat. And then as well as the B-pillar area there, that raised area there is that B-pillar pushed in, almost getting into the roof. And then of course where the front fender mounted to, that's all crushed in as well too. So you could buy a new fender, but the fender wouldn't really fit properly because all the mounting points are out of spec, out of alignment. So that's just the kinds of things you find out. You start finding all kinds of hidden damage when you start getting into it, which is why I just went ahead and decided to buy the white car and just swap the powertrains instead of trying to worry about the frame and everything. It's just an unknown. So anyway, that's pretty much how you pull an engine. I'm going to go ahead and set this engine aside and get working on that HVAC system.